Yes, what you read is true. Joe Rogan does think that Ron DeSantis would make a good president. Now, this came from Insider. Joe Rogan says Florida Governor Ron DeSantis would be a good president and calls Joe Biden a dead man. Let's get into this story. The high-profile fan base of Florida Governor Ron DeSantis just got bigger. Joe Rogan, the world's #1 most listened podcaster, said Tuesday that he thinks the 43-year-old Republican governor would work as a good president. Oh, Joe, what is happening to you? What he's done for Florida has been admirable, Rogan said in an episode of his Joe Rogan Experience show, when Daily Wire actress Gina Carano was asking who he might want to see run for the White House in 2024. He described DeSantis as not perfect, but said he stood up for freedoms. Hold on to that, because I'm going to show you a clip in just a second from Secular Talk, where he points out that that's not necessarily true. Rogan also referred to President Joe Biden, 79, as a dead man when he discussing the state of the U.S. Sorry. Rogan's comments are likely to add speculation that DeSantis would run for president in 2024, even though the governor has repeatedly said he's focused on his 2022 race for re-election in Florida. Elizabeth Warren also said that in the past. When she was running for re-election here in Massachusetts, she said that she was focusing on her race here in Massachusetts, but she also ran for president. So just keep that in mind. Just keep that in mind. Earlier this month, DeSantis beat former President Donald Trump in a straw poll of self-identified conservative conference goers at the Western Conservative Summit, who were asked who they'd like to be the 2024 presidential nominee. A Morning Consult poll out Wednesday also showed growing support for DeSantis. DeSantis tends to brush off questions about 2024 when he's asked, though last week he said he thought the presidential speculation was aimed at distracting from the losses that Democrats are expected to face in the midterms in November. Rogan is just the latest high-profile figure to heap praise on DeSantis. Last week, pundit Piers Morgan called on Republicans to dump Trump and support DeSantis. And earlier this month, Tesla and SpaceX CEO Elon Musk said he'd likely support DeSantis for president in 2024. DeSantis, I got to be careful for new people here who don't understand why I'm about to say this word, but because of censorship, I have to call it something else. DeSantis' pandemic response got Rogan's attention. During his podcast, Rogan said his support for DeSantis was largely because of the governor's approach to the pandemic. DeSantis prohibited schools and workplaces from forcing workers to get the jab as a condition of employment, and from forcing children to wear masks in schools. He stressed that the state should focus on the most vulnerable populations. I feel like what he did for Florida, a lot of people gave him a lot of grief, but ultimately he was correct. He was correct when it comes to deaths. He was correct. And when it comes to protecting all vulnerable populations, he was correct in terms of distribution of monoclonal antibodies. Rogan holds several politically liberal positions, including on abortion, drug legalization, but he has drawn criticism for his willingness to interview controversial people on his podcast and for saying that young and healthy people didn't need the jab. Rogan appeared to touch on the controversy more broadly in his Tuesday podcast. There was some weird gaslighting shit that went on where people equated freedom and saying the word freedom to like right-wing bigotry and hate is so strange. DeSantis, in turn, has defended Rogan before. In February, he said Rogan shouldn't cow to the mob and apologize after a video montage went viral of Rogan using a racial slur on his podcast. So, When I first heard this, I was like, this is probably a rumor. I first heard about it on Twitter. I was like, let me do my research because this is probably a rumor. I always have to do that, especially with a lot of the information that comes across Twitter. And then I saw it was not a rumor. So Joe Rogan does support Ron DeSantis running for president. Now, I would say, Joe Rogan, his positions have changed over the past couple of months. Last year, he did an interview with Kulinski. I think that interview may have been pulled from Spotify because I do remember they pulled a bunch of his episodes, and I think that was the one. And that's unfortunate because it was that interview where Joe Rogan said he actually changed his mind about Medicare for all. That's the one I'm referring to when I tell people that he actually said, that was recent. He actually said recently that he's not for Medicare for all anymore. It was on that segment where I saw him say that. Now, he said something about has to deal with the doctors not being able to get paid what they should get paid. It was a long conversation. I don't remember all of it, but I remember that part. And Joe Rogan, will I say that his positions are exactly the same as they were when he endorsed Bernie Sanders in 2020? No, I don't think they are. He's changed his views on some things. Now, somebody sent me this video of Secular Talk responding to Joe Rogan supporting Ron DeSantis for president for 2024. And I want you to listen to this. I'm not going to play the entire video, but there's certain parts that I do want to show you. It was pretty clear to me. I think Kyle was pretty disturbed by this. And I guess he's friends with Joe Rogan or something like that. And I guess, he probably looking at this as though, how could you endorse Bernie Sanders in 2020 and now you're saying you support Ron DeSantis? So I guess I see where that's coming from. But it was also kind of clear to me based on some of the things that he shows in this video and he says in this video, I don't think that Kyle has been listening to Joe Rogan recently. If he has, maybe he's just missed those episodes, but Joe Rogan's views have changed. I see people getting a cringe face in the chat. Don't worry, Kyle's face is not on this video. For some reason, he's actually not on the video. He's just talking. So the first thing he's going to do is he's going to explain to you why Ron DeSantis is not a good decision. He's going to show you some of where he stands on some of the issues and why that doesn't fit Joe Rogan's, where Joe Rogan stands on those issues. And then he's going to show you where Joe Rogan stands on the issues. And that's the part that I want you to pay close attention to because I noticed something about those clips. So here we go.
Now, one of the things Joe clearly cares a lot about is he was anti-mandate and he was anti-lockdown. And he uses that word freedom a lot in this clip. Here's the problem with Ron DeSantis. Even though you can say, hey, the fact that he was anti-lockdown is something I consider pro-freedom, can't say that about this. Florida Governor Ron DeSantis says marijuana should remain criminalized because of its, quote, putrid odor. Now, this is an issue that Joe Rogan cares a lot about, if not more than the lockdown stuff. And of course, he's cared about it for a much longer time because it's been an issue for a longer amount of time. So, but even to the claim of like, hey, he's anti-lockdown and it kind of worked out in Florida. Well, on paper, it is true that the number of COVID deaths or the rate of COVID deaths in Florida compared to other states like New York, for example, it's almost identical. So without the stringent lockdown, you still had about the same number of deaths in Florida as you did in New York, as you did in even like the strictest lockdown states. I think Michigan was one of them, and Michigan even had a slightly higher COVID death rate. But having said that, it might be a little bit misleading because Miami Herald reports Florida undercounted COVID cases and deaths. Failed to get test results, state audit says. But now also New York did too. New York undercounted those deaths as well.
I got to speed up a little bit past this. We can't stay on that for too long because YouTube don't like that. Let's go back to the weed.
And I don't know, to be honest, I don't know if Joe knows that this guy's deeply against marijuana. So I really hope Joe watches this segment because I'm going to walk through the rest of Ron DeSantis' record. Now,
so I want to chime in here for just a second in reference to DeSantis being against decriminalizing marijuana. I don't know if Joe Rogan knows about that as well. Like I knew that. But the reason why I'm asking though is because remember, Joe Rogan used to live in California. Joe Rogan moved to Texas. If I'm not mistaken, I don't think marijuana is decriminalized in Texas. I have to check that. Someone in the chat, if you can you, anyone in the chat from Texas, can you let me know? I don't think it is. But it seemed like Joe Rogan was okay with that. He was okay with moving there, if that's the case, and knowing that it's not. I mean, Joe Rogan's rich. So even if he lives in a state, weed is illegal in Texas. That's what I thought. Thank you, Guy Fall. Joe Rogan is rich. I mean, like he can live in whatever state he wants. And even if it's, not decriminalized or it's not legal in that state, is that really going to affect them? Is it really going to affect someone like Joe Rogan, who's a celebrity, who's rich? Are the cops really going to arrest Joe Rogan for weed? I don't think so. So that may not be something that Joe Rogan really cares about, to be honest with you, because he's not really affected. Here we go.
Understand, one of the issues I care deeply about, and I know Joe cares deeply about, is free speech. Well, let's look at DeSantis' record on that front. DeSantis signs bill banning protests outside any residence. Just so everybody understands, this is unconstitutional. This is against the First Amendment. And the Supreme Court has decided this. There was a case from the 1990s where anti-abortion protesters protested outside of an abortion clinic. Now, there are rules like, you can't harass the people walking in or touch the people walking in. You need to keep a little bit of distance between you and the abortion clinic. But they said, look, it's unconstitutional to tell them they can't protest there. Now, by the same token, in that same case, the anti-abortion protesters actually went to the residences of people who worked at the abortion clinic and they protested there. Now, again, as long as you keep a certain amount of distance, it is your constitutional right to protest outside of their residence. That's what they decided. So DeSantis doing this is flat out unconstitutional. And
this is the hypocrisy part about Ron DeSantis, because I know like some people have come forward and say that they like him because he's against censorship and he says that he's pro free speech. But at the same time, he was the one that, signed the bill that prevented people from protesting at people's residences in Florida. So I still feel like that's censorship. So that's the whole hypocrisy. It's like it's the people that like it's the people that like they say they're for free speech, but it's only for certain things. And I feel like that's kind of how it is with Ron DeSantis. But I will also say that is one of the reasons why Joe Rogan also liked Ron DeSantis, because Ron DeSantis came forward and said he's against censorship. So that's the point that Kyle's pointing out here. He's like, well, no, he's not free speech right here.
Against free speech and against free protest, and he did it directly in response to protests outside of Supreme Court justices' homes. More. DeSantis signs bill ending vehicle driver liability for hitting protesters. I believe this was in the wake of the 2020 BLM riots, in the wake of George Floyd being killed. You had these anti-free speech, anti-protest bills pop up in a lot of the Republican states. And again, a lot of these laws are unconstitutional because they end up cracking down on innocent, peaceful protesters. To borrow an old phrase, it's like using a hatchet when you need a scalpel. Anybody who commits actual crimes, burns some shit down, does some property damage, that's against the law. You can arrest them for that stuff. But what they're trying to do here is criminalize protests of a variety and flavor and ideology that they don't agree with.
Right, because if it was protesting for something that Ron DeSantis probably agreed with, he'd probably be okay with it. I agree with him on that point. So I don't know if Joe Rogan's like paying attention to these bills that Ron DeSantis is signing. I don't know if he is or not, but that's a problem. He should be paying attention to that.
That's exactly what DeSantis was doing here. Ending vehicle driver liability for hitting protesters. So almost green lighting people to drive over protesters if you disagree with the protesters. That's beyond preposterous and, again, deeply against the First Amendment. More. Florida rejects 41% of new math textbooks, citing critical race theory among its reasons. Now, this is just like goofy-ass witch hunt stuff. But it even goes deeper than this, because remember,
but that's another example of the free speech hypocrisy. Again, that's another thing to point to, that stop saying that Ron DeSantis is pro free speech. He's only pro free speech about the issues that he wants you to know about. That's it. The issues that he approves of. I'm going to skip ahead here just a little bit because, like I said, I can't play the entire interview. I think he goes into the don't say gay law next. That should be coming next.
And now we have the answer. This actually just came out. Look at this, guys. Representatives for Orange County teachers sounded alarm bells Monday after word spread from principals that Orange County Public Schools would impose strict restrictions on classroom behavior after Florida's new Parental Rights and Education Law, aka the Don't Say Gay Law, took effect. In private, administrators-only seminars last week, OCPS attorneys advised principals what behaviors would and would not be legal under the law during a camp legal presentation. According to representatives of the county's teacher association, teachers and staff members will be disallowed from wearing rainbow articles of clothing, including lanyards distributed by the district last year. Elementary level teachers reported being discouraged from putting pictures of their same-sex spouse on their desk or talking about them to students. Safe space stickers aimed at LGBTQ students may have to be removed from doors. Teachers will have to report to parents if a student comes out to them, and they must use pronouns assigned at birth.
Okay, so even with this one, this is another example of the hypocrisy. Like, really, you can't have a picture of you and your spouse on your desk if you're gay? That's not, again, that's censorship, in my opinion. Now I'm going to move forward a little bit here because he starts to get into the part where he believes that Joe Rogan stands on the issues. He shows also a video of some of the other things that Ron DeSantis has done. But that's actually pretty long. I'm just gonna be honest with you guys. What I want to jump to is this part right about here.
Florida falls in income inequality, tax fairness, education spending, you name it. Ron DeSantis will keep leading his culture wars, claiming to stand up to big business.
You can't be cowed by these organizations, particularly by woke corporations, from doing the right thing.
Well, the right thing for DeSantis seems to be turning his back on Floridians and protecting the bottom line of massive corporations.
Yeah, I mean, Ron DeSantis is straight up corporate. I don't think he's pretending like he's not. I'm just being honest.
See, this is what guys like DeSantis do. They lean into culture war stuff, and then they're just standard, run-of-the-mill, corrupt politicians serving corporations and screwing working people. Now, I show you all that. Remember, this Joe Rogan, this is the same Joe Rogan that we're talking about. Look at this. Remember this, guys? Let me make sure.
This is the part I want you to pay attention to, because he's going to show you clips of Joe Rogan and showing you where Joe Rogan stands on the issues. But there's something I noticed about these clips. Listen to this.
It's on 1.25. Look at this.
I really believe if Michelle Obama runs, she wins. She's good. She's great. She's the wife of the best president that we have had in our lifetime. I've never voted right wing in my life. I consider universal basic income a really good idea. I want free college education. Take it easy. Hello, Bernie.
How are you, Joe?
Wonderful. Pleasure to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
I like Tulsi and I like Bernie. That's it.
Oh, yeah?
Everybody else can eat shit.
Look at you, fucking progressive.
Yeah. I think I'll probably vote for Bernie. I think he's looking out for the interests of the working people. And I think he wants people to have a better life and do better. And I'm all for that. And if that means I have to pay more in tax, like people think, oh, you're a socialist. I've heard people say that. Oh, you're a fucking socialist, bro. Like, first of all, he's not even a socialist. He's a democratic socialist. It's a different thing. I would like to spend more in taxes if they could fix inner city communities and take these poor neighborhoods and throw a fuckload of spend more, you fucking Republican piece of shit. 87% of scientists said that human activity is driving global warming. I'm very pro-choice. I'm very women's rights, civil rights, gay rights, trans rights. I'm even universal health care. Obviously, this protected status is driving me crazy. This thing that Trump's doing with children that were born in other countries and then brought over here as children, and then they're talking about deporting them. That drives me fucking crazy.
Yeah,
and the hard right version of that is despicable. These people that I see online, why didn't they apply for citizenship? Oh, who knows? Maybe because they're fucking 13. I don't give a fuck if they broke the law. You don't take parents and kids and separate them. You just fucking don't. You know Lonzo?
No, I was
A funny comedian.
Yeah.
He said, he goes, not all Donald Trump supporters are racist, but all racists are Donald Trump supporters.
He definitely awakened that side.
But the January 6th thing is important.
See, it is important,
And
but is it the 6 months later? Is it should be the ruling number one conversation of
I think
journalists?
it's really important. And one of the reasons why I think it's important because it highlights the reasons why a guy like Donald Trump is so fucking dangerous. Is because a guy can incite a bunch of morons to do something really fucking stupid. But as far as trans people, some trans people listening to this, I got nothing but love for you. For everybody. And in fact, Eddie Izzard is one of my all-time favorite guests.
Oh, I love Izzard.
The right-wing thing is just an easy way to dismiss me because I'm not right-wing. I can't recommend your book, Race Matters, enough.
So here's the problem. Those clips are older clips. That's the piece that's missing. Yeah, Joe Rogan said all those things. He did. But those are old clips. And that's why I've said when I saw this, I was like, has he watched Joe Rogan recently though? Because he has changed his position on some of these issues. And when he showed you that video, he doesn't tell you, I mean, I know they're old clips, but does everybody else know that? Now that video was made by, it says video by Orf, so I guess that was made by Matt Orf, I think. Matt Orf makes a lot of like those kind of videos. That's nice and everything. But where does Joe Rogan stand today? He's flip-flopped on the issues. I've seen him do it. I've seen him go back and forth. Listen to this.
So there you have it. This is the same Joe Rogan who now is, sort of tepidly endorsing Ron DeSantis for president. And in my experience with Joe, first of all, Joe's a great guy. Second of all, he is one of the most open-minded people I've ever met in the sense that if you make a good argument, he goes, man, you know what? I was wrong. That makes perfect sense. And I mean, I know because it happened with, what was it? Paid maternity leave or paid paternity leave, paid time off, something like that. He made some comment that was against it. Crystal and I responded and showed all like the charts and the graphs and hey, here's what it's like in the US versus all the other countries. We sort of get screwed. We don't have any time off, certainly no paid time off. This is about like looking out for working people, and he changed his mind on that. And this is something that he's done a number of times over the years. So look, I hope that I changed his mind with all these things I laid out for you here, because he's a very influential person. He's got the #1 podcast in the world. A lot of people listen to him and take him very seriously. And so for him to support somebody like DeSantis is definitely harmful, because DeSantis is a corrupt goon and he would govern like a corrupt goon like he's doing right now.
Kyle is having a hard time with this, I think. I think he's having a hard time believing that Joe Rogan is supporting Ron DeSantis.
So again, I hope that this helps change his mind. I mean, understand something, guys. I've given Bill Maher endless amounts of shit because he went from Bernie Sanders to Amy Klobuchar.
Bill Maher is not to be taken seriously.
So I would be a hypocrite if I didn't also give Joe Rogan shit from going from Bernie Sanders to Ron DeSantis. Ron DeSantis, who's worse than Amy Klobuchar in terms of his actual policy agenda. And that's really what this comes down to. And that's what I need everybody to understand. I mean, the only way you can really go from Bernie to Ron DeSantis is if you're, making a decision about who should be president based on vibes, based on nonsense eye test stuff.
I don't think so. Let's talk about this for a second, you guys. Why would someone go from supporting Bernie Sanders to Ron DeSantis? I already gave you two of the big reasons why I think. The censorship. Number one, there's no Bernie Sanders running this time. I don't care what Bernie says. I don't think Bernie Sanders is going to run again. There's no Bernie Sanders running. There's no progressive that has announced that they're running for president at this point in time, right? What are the big issues that people like Joe Rogan have been having to deal with to the point where it affects their career, where they had episodes removed, people trying to kick them off of Spotify? censorship. So if you hear someone like Ron DeSantis say, I'm pro-speech, I'm, anti-censorship, that might appeal to you if you don't dig a little bit deeper and see all this other stuff that he was talking about in this video. That's a big part of it. What else? The pandemic. What party was pushing the lockdowns? The Democratic Party. Ron DeSantis wasn't. And Joe Rogan didn't agree with the lockdowns. So this is where, let me finish this. Hold on.
And vibes don't cut it when it comes to politics. The eye test doesn't cut it when it comes to politics. What matters is the policy agenda. What did you actually do? What's your experience? What did you actually do with power? And what do you plan on doing with power? Those are the only things that matter. And so every single one of these positions that Rogan supports in this video, Ron DeSantis is an enemy of. He's an enemy of those things. So, I mean, you just can't square that circle, dude. You cannot square that circle. So again, I hope this changes his mind. I hope that anybody who watches this, who's DeSantis curious, understands who and what he really is and what he really supports. And I guess we'll see. I guess we'll find out. But DeSantis for president is a terrible idea. And I just laid out, at least 7, 8 reasons why that is.
So that's that. Now, I personally, am I pro Ron DeSantis? Nope. I'm not pro anybody running the two-party system. And I made this announcement the other day. I will not support any candidate running as a Democrat or Republican. To get my support, you have to run third party or independent. That's it. You can take it or leave it. Eric Gray, I live in Florida and Ron DeSantis is absolutely terrible. I know. See, the problem is right now is because Biden is so bad, any other option is appealing to people. Any other option. Thank you for the super chat, the Vinyl Dreamscape. That's an important history. Thank you. Thank you for this super chat. DeSantis will be dangerous. Luis, if Jimmy D went on Rogan podcast, he'd be like, go Jimmy Dore 24. That's a good point. Sherry, let's face it, folks, unless we get in the streets like they are doing in France, we are screwed in this country. Agreed. Stephen Miles Cook, because Joe Rogan doesn't actually have any principles, but his own personal economic growth. LOL. That's why he is all over the place. No real values. And thank you for this super chat, Buckeye fan. If Jimmy Dore made the same decision, he would not be so careful to criticize him like he's doing now with Rogan. Oh, Buckeye fan, that is a good point. Oh, that's a good point. Let's talk about that for a second. If it was Jimmy saying that he supports Ron DeSantis for president, would he have been criticized the same way, or would the criticism have been heavier? And Jimmy probably would have gotten it from all different angles. A lot of independent media probably would have covered that story and went after Jimmy Dore. That's a good point. Well, they're friends, you know. A lot of times people tend to be, easier. They go easier on their friends. So that's something to think about. Either way, whoever Joe Rogan support, that's really up to him.